I didn't believe it myself, well, at least at first. Even when I saw the evidence with my own eyes, I knew there had to be a logical explanation. I knew the truth, but I was the only one who believed in that truth. I don't remember much of what happened that night, only that Kevin was escorted from the ranks of the carefree and single into the ranks of the happily married. For me, it all started the following week after Kevin and Amy returned from their honeymoon. 4 months later, it still isn't over. Kate was going to get hers in full, no matter the price. In court, I would say, guilty on all counts, but I would also ask for mercy from the court. Even some criminals receive amnesty if they cooperate with the court and do what is necessary to make amends. Didn't I deserve the same treatment? I didn't kill anyone, although perhaps what I did, or what was done to me while under the influence, still wasn't enough of a defense. Leavenworth and even Alcatraz would have been a walk in the park compared to the prison she put me in. For months I had been hoping for early release for good behavior or a pardon from the governor, neither of which happened. I was sentenced to life in prison without parole unless I could convince the prosecutor to drop the charges. But she didn't listen, so I made my own deal and ran away. Now I was free. Or was I truly free, and if so, at what cost? We booked several hotel rooms. None of us were planning on going anywhere that night. With the bar open in the rented party room, the alcohol was flowing freely, and after just 2 hours I was already over my limit. Take 17 crazy guys, add an open bar, some card games, add 2 showgirls, and finally top up the video capabilities of their smartphones, and you have a recipe for disaster. And the disaster really happened. The last thing I vaguely remember was participating in a beer drinking competition. I was told that I came in 4th place out of 5 because the last sip, instead of going down my throat, came out of my nose as I was choking. I've never been much of a drinker, and I do know that at some point in the evening I threw up somewhere, although even that memory was a blur. When the party ended, someone must have put me in one of the beds, because I woke up the next morning, lying on my back in one of the rooms. For a moment I thought I was dead, or wished I was, when it was incredibly painful to even blink, let alone breathe. The groom was still unconscious on the bed next to me, and the other 2 were lying on the floor. Looks like they didn't make it to the other bed last night. It was going to be a crazy end to the party. It's a pity that I remember almost nothing. I somehow managed to call room service. I ordered several pitchers of black coffee for each room and carefully walked towards the bathroom. I cleaned up as much as I could, feeling guilty, knowing that the maid would have to do the rest. I spent the next 10 minutes in the shower trying to clean myself with a tiny bar of soap that kept falling out, so I eventually just sat on the floor of the tub and called it a day. I brushed my teeth and rinsed my mouth, but there was still a bad taste in my mouth. I needed coffee, lots of coffee. One by one, the zombies began to move, and very clumsily, I must say. After last night, it was surprising that they were still breathing, let alone standing, let alone walking. No one spoke. I'm not sure if they could even speak, but it hasn't happened yet. With 2 jugs of coffee under our belts and a few more bathroom breaks, the dead began to come back to life. I called the front desk and asked for a late checkout. The girl at the counter laughed and said that she had already signed us up for it. She asked if we needed body bags. We seemed to be impressed. Luckily, I brought clean clothes. Most of the others didn't bring it and regretted it in the morning. Kevin was still unconscious. I finally checked his pulse to make sure he was alive. He was weak and slow, but he would make it in time for his wedding next Saturday. The ice pack on his forehead brought him back to life, as if he had been hit by a defibrillator. Guys, we have to leave here in an hour, so I highly recommend getting moving. Gary threw up in the toilet again just to be sure. David stood motionless, looking out the window with a cup of coffee in his hand, and Kevin finally sat up, applying a compress to the back of his head. He refused coffee, but luckily used mouthwash in the bathroom. The responsibility fell on me to deliver him back to his apartment this morning. 15 minutes later, I checked the other 3 rooms, and like ours, there were many near-death moments. Everyone finally stood up and moved, although not very quickly or confidently. On the way out, I gave the maid a couple of 20s and apologized. In the car, I left the window open, watching Kevin fasten his seat belt, close his eyes, and go back to sleep. I just prayed that he wouldn't throw up in my car. At 32, Kevin was the last member of our group to finally decide to get married. He and Amy had been together for 3 years, living together for 2 years, when suddenly he decided to propose to her. "It's time," was the only explanation he gave. Instead of having a huge formal celebration, they decided to have a small, intimate wedding limited to immediate family and close friends. They decided that instead of spending a ton of money on a huge wedding, it would be better spent on a down payment on a cute house they've had their eye on. They moved forward together. Amy told Kevin to get everything out of his system the night of his bachelor party, because in 7 days he would be hers forever. She was not a big drinker, forbade smoking in their apartment, and was going to do everything possible to keep the confirmed bachelor within limits after the wedding. So Kevin was told he had one night, and one night only, to blow off some steam and get it all out of his head. And he did it. I don't know who brought the 2 girls. Kevin tried their services at least once that night. They weren't too bad to look at, they were shaped for comfort and weren't tight at all, if you know what I mean. I stayed away, preferring to eat snacks and use the open bar. I wasn't going to ruin what I had at home. Besides, it was quite difficult for me to stand on my feet, let alone anything else. A few days later, someone told me that the bartender sat my drunken body in a chair at one of the card tables. This answered the question of where the $50 I brought for the game went. As I said at the beginning, alcohol and cell phones should never be used at the same time. People went crazy, made videos, and a lot of people ended up losing their minds and doing things they wouldn't normally do. Not me, I was too drunk. So after I left Kevin at his apartment, I returned home thinking that that drunken night was behind me. How wrong I was. The wedding was informal and fun. Amy wanted to spend it on the beach at sunset, but getting permission from the city turned out to be a real nightmare. When she was told that they would also need an on-duty police officer and that they would have to pay for his work themselves, they changed their plans a little. So at 8:30 on a Saturday night, a week after the bachelor party, 36 people went to the beach, had a quick impromptu wedding ceremony, and then everyone went to the local restaurant where they had rented a room. The food was good, the party was fun, and 2 hours later the bride and groom left for parts unknown. Everything went without a hitch. When Kevin returned from his honeymoon, several of us got together. Some idiots showed everyone some videos they made. Kevin told them it would be better to remove them. "Guys, it was one hell of a party, but I'm married now and I definitely don't want to piss off my new wife." He raised his glass. "Here's to Amy and my long and fruitful life with her," he shouted, and everyone drank to his new wife and their future together. Life was good. No one knew how the photos and videos got online. No one admitted it, and it could only have been one of the 16 other guys who were there. No, let it be 15, because I know I didn't film anything, and Kevin certainly wouldn't do it. Whoever made it, and for whatever reason, the videos began to take on a life of their own. One wife saw them on her husband's phone, then another, and eventually everyone at that damn party had to answer sensitive questions about what happened that night and who did what. Kevin personally called each of us and scolded us, not knowing who was in charge. "Kevin, do I have dumb written all over my forehead?" This is how I answered his questions. I was in no condition to do anything that night. If it were me, I would have asked those 3 guys from your work. I heard more than one guy say that they always had cell phones in their hands, and they spent most of the night sending messages. "Steve, I didn't think it was you, but I had to ask. Amy is angry not because I did anything, but because what I did was now visible to the whole world. Everyone who saw them gave her advice on what to do with me. Damn, I hope you don't break up over this. This whole thing has gotten out of control. Don't get your hopes up. She said I had a get out of jail break that night, but now I'll be on a short leash for a long time. I already went to the clinic to get tested just in case. This will all calm down for me, but a lot of other guys will have a lot to explain. Did you happen to participate?" Luckily, I didn't do anything. Hell, I was so drunk, I probably couldn't have done anything even if I wanted to. We both laughed at this. Well, I'll call my friends and find out why the hell they posted the video on YouTube. Some people just don't have common sense, you know? I agreed with him on this issue. Some wives ignored this, thinking their husbands were brain zombies. Others got angry, but a third group went on the attack. Thank God I didn't do anything. When Kate asked me about it, I said I didn't do anything. She smiled. We made love that night. Life was still good. On Thursday, Kate returned from work and asked point blank if I had seen the video. No, to be honest, I didn't and don't see the point of it. I was there, so I think I know what happened until I lost consciousness. Well, Lori gave me a copy, and she thinks I should watch one in particular. You can't think of a single reason why I should do that, can you? Honey, I was a good boy all night, except for a little too much. If you want, watch them, please, so you can see for yourself what I didn't do. I smiled, at least for now. I was frying a couple of chicken breasts for dinner when I heard a loud swearing from the living room. The first thing I thought was that my oldest, Gary, was watching something he shouldn't have on Cinemax. I was about to lecture him when my wife stormed past me, saying something about being a fucking bastard and a few other rude words that I couldn't catch as she ran up the stairs. What came over her, I thought, going into the living room to see what made her so angry. There, on the screen, one of the videos from the bachelor party was still playing. I stopped it, rewinded it for about 5 minutes, and started watching. The first thing I noticed was the loud, boisterous behavior of the guys, screaming and staggering around the hotel room. Kevin was thrown onto the bed by the guys, and he looked completely passed out. No wonder he had a headache the next morning. It looks like the party has moved from the lobby to one of the hotel rooms. Then everything went wrong. Remember those two dancers? When I saw them enter the room, I became a little nervous. When the camera panned to the bed, I saw myself lying next to an unconscious Kevin. I too must have been half asleep or completely unconscious. I didn't even move. Then I saw the blonde get in Kevin's way. My brain began to process what I was seeing. Why was Kate so upset to see this? Hell, it was his last night of freedom, wasn't it? I thought. Then I saw the reason why she ran upstairs. My eyes were glued to the screen when the black girl approached me. I stopped the recording, rewinded, and watched it twice more. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. There was a lot of laughter as the cameraman filmed the other guys in the room before the video cut out. My participation lasted only 15 seconds, but that was 15 seconds too many. Damn, I went back and watched this again. Crap, I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes. Then I started to worry. I replayed that night over and over in my head, trying to remember anything related to what I saw on the screen. Nothing. I didn't remember anything. What the hell? She must have seen that I was unconscious, I said out loud, playing it back in slow motion. Kate presumably saw it differently. That night I was not allowed into our bedroom. I slept on the sofa in the living room. We didn't have a spare bedroom, and I definitely didn't want to sleep in our damp basement. However, I wrote her a note trying to explain what I saw in the video and slipped it under the door after I knocked for the last time around 10:30 at night. I played the damn video from start to finish, hoping to see something that would show Kate how drunk I was. I was only in the video a couple of times, since I was not at the center of all the events. I was hardly shown. However, I didn't sleep a wink that night. I don't want to talk about it, was the only answer I received the next morning as she prepared breakfast for the children. I was late and completely useless at work. I tried to get home early, but got stuck in traffic and ended up being over an hour late. For a while, I thought you weren't going to show up here at all tonight, Kate said sarcastically as I walked through the garage door. Look, I still don't remember anything, and I don't remember exactly what happened in that hotel room. You should have seen that I was completely out of my mind. Hell, I didn't even move when she... Steve, I know what I saw. Kate, you know me. Do you really think that if I was going to cheat on you, I would do it in front of all these witnesses And while everyone was filming it, for God's sake, how stupid do you think I am? After dinner, why don't we watch it together and I can explain everything to you? You said you were unconscious. Yes, it was, but sometimes what you see doesn't correspond to what's actually happening. I grabbed for a straw. I smashed that DVD into a million pieces. Do you really think I'd leave something like that in the house? What if Gary or Angie found it? How would you explain it to them? When Dad goes out with his friends, he gets drunk and makes out sex with women of easy virtue. Yes, that would be great, wouldn't it? Kate, I didn't have sex, I said for the 10th time. Just like Bill Clinton. All you men are the same. She didn't believe a single word I said. How about I bring a couple of guys over to tell you what really happened? As if I would believe them after what I saw everyone else do. You must think I'm very naive or just stupid. Okay, how about I bring those dancers over to talk to you? If I don't trust you or your buddies, what makes you think I'll trust two damn ladies? I was completely lost. Kate, you have to trust me. Steve, I don't want to talk about this anymore. You embarrassed me and humiliated me in front of most of our friends. I can only thank God that someone had the decency to take this off the internet. Can you imagine if your parents saw this or mine? Just leave it. I don't want to discuss it again. Do you hear me? Clear and clear was my only answer. Do you think this is the end? Much to my chagrin, this was just the beginning. That night, as she was getting ready for bed, I walked in and started changing her clothes. What are you doing here? Huh? I live here. No, I mean, what are you doing in our bedroom? I'm going to bed, what? Here came her immediate answer. Yes, this is my bedroom too, and if you don't want me here, you can sleep in the living room. There was no way I was going to sleep on that couch again. It was very cold in our bedroom that night. She slept on her side of the bed, and I slept on mine. This went on all weekend. We were alone in the house. I was grateful to go to work on Monday and see some friendly faces. I talked to a few friends and learned that more than one husband had been in the same situation as me, including two others who had been kicked out of their home and were now sleeping in motels. I knew that both of them had done something to girls and deserved it, but I didn't do anything. Well, at least not unconsciously. I still maintained that I was not guilty of anything serious, and I was judged more than once, but I did not give up. It could have happened, but I don't remember it, although now I wish I could remember. If I was being tormented like this, then I at least wanted to get satisfaction from the memories of it. This went on for more than a month. Our kids knew something was going on because more than once I heard Kate tell my son that Mommy and Daddy were fighting because Daddy had done something very, very bad. Thank God, none of them knew what it was. I did everything I could to make it up to her. I cleaned, cooked dinner, washed her car, and even took care of the children to make it easier for her. I tried to give her flowers, but she threw them in the trash, and when I gave her a spa gift certificate, she tore it up in front of me. I said the word sorry so many times that it lost its meaning and became almost like a four-letter word in her eyes. Looks like I'll be in trouble for a long time. I tried to make things work a couple of times, only to get frostbites when I touched her. Looks like I haven't been forgiven yet. I gave her another month. She started going out on Fridays with friends, probably to discuss with other wives and complain about me. She came home not drunk, but not completely sober either. When it turned into going home at 7 and then at 9, I wasn't happy. And when she didn't come home until 11 and was quite drunk, I exploded because she was driving home in that state. The situation quickly deteriorated as all the dirt from the past was brought up again and thrown in my face. That night, I locked her behind the bedroom door. She knocked on our bedroom door for about 20 minutes, waking up our children in the process. Eventually, she left, where at that moment I didn't care. She must have passed out somewhere. Another night of not sleeping a wink, and it was starting to become a bad habit. Her attitude and rudeness towards me reached the limit. I wasn't 100% innocent, but damn, I'm done paying. I'm tired of living with the Wicked Witch of the West. Kate was in particularly rare form on Saturday morning. She was sipping a cup of coffee, just waiting for me. I felt her icy gaze on my back as I poured myself a cup, hoping that this morning's conversation wouldn't turn out to be as ugly as usual. I sat down opposite her at the kitchen table, looked into her cold blue eyes, and gave her a full volley. Mrs. Kate Moore, you have 3 days to make a decision. We can start talking and living as a married couple again. We can go to counseling to sort out our problems, or we can separate and get a divorce. The choice is yours. You are threatening me, she demanded, straightening up immediately. No, rather, I'm telling you the facts of life. I'm tired of living like this, and I'm not going to do it anymore. So I'm giving you a decision, but I'm only giving you 3 days to do it. I remained calm. I did not raise my voice and was as non-confrontational as possible while still getting my message across. I am leaving home this morning and giving you until Tuesday at 7 in the morning to give me your answer. Depending on your decision, I will do what is best for me. You're kidding, right? She spat. You're cheating on me, and now you're giving me ultimatums. Steve, you don't have the courage to walk out that door. I didn't even finish my coffee. I just went to the sink and poured out the rest. She followed me up the stairs to a closet in the hallway, where I took out one suitcase. If she thought I was bluffing, she was sadly mistaken. Throwing my suitcase on the bed, I packed 2 changes of work clothes and a few casual outfits for the weekend. I gathered the razor, deodorant, and other toiletries I would need, put the rest on top, and closed the suitcase. She stood there with her mouth open, saying nothing. I was carrying my suitcase down the stairs when I saw my daughter and son watching us. Dad, don't go. Mom, tell him to stay, my son begged his wife. I kissed and hugged both children tightly as they turned their attention to their mother, who simply looked at me almost in disbelief. As I threw my suitcase into the back seat of the car, I turned around and looked at Kate. Nothing, not a drop of emotion on her face. The last word I heard from my daughter was, "Daddy." With difficulty containing my emotions, I drove out of the garage onto the street, heading towards the Red Roof Inn on 12th Street. I turned off the phone. I didn't want to hear any more of her rants today. I spent the rest of the day in my room, drinking more than a few cold ones, watching college football, and feeling sorry for myself. I was right, wasn't I? Because I drank too many alcoholic drinks, I slept through dinner. It was almost 9:30 the next morning when I finally woke up. I needed a shower and something to put in my stomach. I began to doubt my actions. They say problems can't be solved without talking, except we didn't even yell at each other anymore. We lived in the same house and even shared a bed, but we were not together. Did I overestimate the situation? Perhaps I should have given her more time to get over what happened, but after 4 months of hell, I was exhausted. What I really wanted was an immediate answer, knowing that the answer I would probably receive would not be one I would like. She knew what she wanted, and if she didn't, she had 72 hours to figure it out. I ate everything that wasn't nailed to the floor at the breakfast buffet. I ate everything I was told was bad for me, and even took extra bacon and sausage. I almost felt human again. Looking at the phone, I thought about turning it on, but decided to wait a couple more hours. Both parents knew we had problems, and even though I tried to minimize them, my father saw right through it. He finally cornered me one Sunday, and I told him the whole story, what the video showed, and my side of the story. Glad it was you and not me. Your mother would have been killed before I woke up the next morning. He laughed. I tried, but it wasn't funny anymore. I know Kate, she'll let you suffer for a couple of weeks, and then she'll forgive you. Hell, if this is the worst thing you'll ever do, consider yourself lucky. Flowers always helped your mother, and if not, chocolate and another charm worked for her bracelet. How wrong he was. Now I was away and trying to figure out my next step. Let me rephrase that the ball was in Kate's court, and all I could do was wait. I knew I couldn't be a patient person for long. When I finally turned on the phone, there were 2 calls from my son, none from Kate. I was worried. Hell yeah, but I think she thought I was bluffing, and maybe I was a little bluffing. We just needed to get it off the ground and move forward, or more accurately, get back to where we were. Sunday was the most stressful and boring day of my married life to date. I was tired from football, and with work tomorrow, I definitely wasn't going to get drunk, so I indulged in inactivity, made some notes on how I thought we could get back to what we had, and went to bed early. Luckily, Monday arrived. Glad to finally be busy because I would go crazy if I didn't have anything to do. I was completely immersed in work and didn't even stop for lunch. I was still on edge when my boss told me to go home to my beautiful wife. This, my friends, was not going to happen, at least not tonight. A couple of guys asked if I wanted to stop for a cold beer after work. So for the first time in a couple of years, I accepted their offer. I had a great time. We drank a little and even stopped for dinner. It was almost 8 o'clock when I returned to my motel room. I flipped through the cable TV programs. Nothing caught my attention. Tomorrow was my day of reckoning, and I had no idea what Kate was going to do. I turned on my phone and saw that I still hadn't received any messages from her. If she wanted to make me nervous, she was good at it. Sleep eluded me again, and I looked at the clock next to my bed almost every hour. By 5:30, I was up, showered, and shaved. I still had to work for a living, but work was the last thing on my mind. I had a full breakfast at the restaurant downstairs and drank more than a few cups of coffee. I waited with my phone in my hand. 7 hours have passed. At 7:30, I left the hotel and went to work, but it only lasted half a day. I checked my phone twice this morning, but didn't receive any calls from anyone. Why do I even carry this damn phone with me? I got a call from my kids, but that's it. I left work, went for a drive, and in addition to feeling sorry for myself and being angry at the games Kate was playing, I began to make some kind of plan on how to move on alone. I know she felt like a victim in this story, but now I felt like a pawn, and I didn't like that one bit. I reached a dead end before telling myself that two people could play this game. My first stop was our bank. I withdrew 3/4 of our savings and checking account and 3 certificates for $2,000 each that we had in the safe. I opened an account in a new bank in my name. If she wants to play games, we'll play games. With her at work and the kids at school, I had the whole house to myself. After 3 days of absence, he still looked the same. Even our bedroom looked neat and clean. I packed 2 more suitcases with the clothes I'd need for the rest of the week, making sure to leave the closet door and a few dresser drawers open enough for her to know I was there. I thought about leaving my wedding ring glued to the countertop with one of our kitchen knives. I thought it would get her attention, but it would probably raise the rate too high, and then I'd have to pay someone to repair the damage. It wouldn't be worth it. So I took my house keys and left. I definitely wasn't going to leave my house keys behind. I found a motel closer to work, checked in, and waited. A little after 6:15, I received 2 unanswered calls and 1 angry message. "You took all our money from the bank. Call me." I didn't answer her calls. Now my back was pressed against the wall. I tried to talk to her for months, and all I got was a cold shoulder. Well, I think to her, money spoke louder than flowers. Kate texted me 4 more times on Tuesday night, and I didn't respond to a single message. Maybe now she'll understand what it's like to try to talk to someone who ignores you. I slept great Tuesday night and ate a grand slam breakfast at Denny's before heading to work. Children play these games, not adults, or at least they shouldn't. Kate's phone calls, emails to my work, and text messages were relentless. I knew the kids would be home from school at 4, so I called at 4:15 and spoke to them both. "Dad, I don't know what you did, but Mom is really angry at you. I haven't seen her this angry since you brought home that plasma TV." I chuckled, but they didn't think it was that funny. "Are you going to get a divorce?" my daughter Angie asked, and this time I didn't have a definite answer for her. "I hope not," was all I could say. I wanted to say that I gave the bitch 3 options, and she didn't choose any of them, but I held back. After all, she is their mother. "Angie, worst case scenario, I'll be home on Friday to pick up some more of my clothes. Maybe we can figure something out by then." I was hopeful because I wasn't sure anymore. On Thursday morning, Kate's father, Doug, came to my office. "Steve, I think this situation between you and my daughter has gotten out of hand. She says she's going to see a lawyer if you don't pay the money back. Doug, she'll do it. I'll try to spend every cent on something she can never get back. Doug, I asked no. I begged her to talk to me, but she refused. She says you cheated on her. You didn't cheat on her, did you? Yes and no, I replied, and then told him the whole story, video and all. I'm tired of telling this story. Look, I see her point of view and yours, but is this worth ruining a marriage over? Well, yes, that's what I was trying to avoid, but Kate still won't budge. She says I don't understand what I put her through. What about what she put us through? She doesn't believe me, how this happened, even after I showed her on the computer that it was possible. She is ready to hang me to dry instead of seeing that it is possible. Although her mother and I don't want to get involved, cool heads must prevail, if only for the sake of your two children. I completely agree with you. It's just that Kate won't listen to a word I say, and the longer this goes on, the harder it will be to go back to the way things were before. I won't go down without a fight, but I can only fight so far, and then, well, you know what will happen. Steve, let me talk to her and see if we can come up with something you can both live with. If not, I guess it's her life, and if she wants to ruin it, then so be it. I was glad that I moved all the money I had withdrawn from our joint account and hid it. This was the only trump card I had left. On Friday, I was served with court documents. They said that I had to return the money within 24 hours or I would go to jail. We both knew it was just an empty threat. My name was on all the accounts, and we both knew that either of us could have withdrawn all the money from the accounts. Even so, I decided to return home and check her bluff. What else could she do to me, kill me? I was talking to two kids in the kitchen when Kate walked through the door. Kids, go to your room. I need to talk to your father alone for a minute. They both looked at me as if I was about to walk along the Green Mile. Steve, what did you do with all our money? She doesn't seem to have softened one bit. Did your father tell you what I would do if you saw the lawyer? So what? Well, I just came here to pick up the rest of my clothes and to tell you that all the money's gone. But if it's any consolation, I had a great time spending it. Steve, don't joke about things like that. You withdrew over $35,000. The money belonged to both of us. It was our retirement savings and part of our children's college fund. Kate, you and I probably won't be together much longer anyway. Hell, we don't even pretend to be together, and besides, I'd probably lose it all in a divorce. Besides, when I go to work tomorrow and hand in my resignation, there will be no alimony or child support. And if you can't pay for the house on your own, most likely the house will have to be sold too. So if you don't mind, I'll pack my things. And leave your hair. Looks like we both have a busy day ahead of us tomorrow. I headed up the stairs with a box of black plastic trash bags. She kept up with me while I packed the rest of my things. I decided to take everything to my parents because my motel room definitely didn't have enough space to store it all. You know I'm not kidding. I will divorce you if you don't return our money. I have no doubt that it will, but right now I don't care what you do. I finally lost my patience. I finished packing and started taking all the bags out to the car. Thank you for the last 11 years, 3 months, and 5 days. I had plenty of time to calculate it all, even the number of hours, if she had asked. So you don't even try anymore? You just walk out of our lives? I finally snapped. Are you really that stupid that you don't understand? I tried to talk to you for 4 months. You kept refusing. I would have walked on hot coals to leave this behind, but you wouldn't even go halfway. I even tried to show you that it's possible. Again, you refused to even meet me halfway. Tomorrow I'll be unemployed, thanks to you, and on the road to the unknown. I just can't stay here knowing that my stupid ex-wife let everything slip through her fingers. With these words, I left. That night, I got drunk as hell. I drank 6 bottles of Corona and half a bottle of wine. I didn't have to work tomorrow, so other than an oil change, this city will see my back by noon tomorrow. I think my anger was driving my actions at that moment. Although I thought I weighed everything clearly, I really didn't. Anger has a way of clouding your mind. Well, in my case, it was like that. When I arrived at work on Monday, my boss, Randy, did not accept my resignation. "Steve, relax. You have 3 weeks off. Take it all and call me when you get back." I told him I wouldn't be coming back, but he insisted that I call him when I returned. I think because no one thought I was serious, that in itself pushed me further. My parents and her parents told us to get out of our asses and sit down and talk like two adults. It was already beyond the bounds. I admit my guilt in this, but not in everything that she pinned on me. I'll be a couple 100 miles away tomorrow night. Kate was sitting on the hood of my car as I checked out of the motel on Monday night. "You just leave town without even saying goodbye to Gary and Angie." "I'll call and talk to them when I'm settled." "What about us?" "Kate, we're gone. You took care of that." "Are you just giving up on everything because you're too stubborn to admit you did something you shouldn't have? Look, here's my final offer. Admit what you did, I'll forgive you, and we'll pick up the pieces of our marriage and move on. Further, I would do that if I did something wrong, but at this point, who cares? You'll never believe me anyway. Steve, look at it from my point of view. Would you believe me if I came with a story like this, and you had video evidence to the contrary? At least I would have given you a chance to justify yourself instead of ruining an 11-year marriage." I threw my bags into the car. Even Kevin admitted he was flirting. But did he remember what happened when he was unconscious? She had no answer to this. Until you experience it yourself, you will never believe me. Okay, we'll do it at home right now. Kate, don't play with me. Steve, I challenge you to this. Either show up or just leave. She had no idea what she was getting into. An hour later, we were sitting at the kitchen table with 3 bottles of her favorite soda, Guilt. "You need to drink at least 2 of these. Are you sure about this?" "I'm sure, but when I prove that I'm right, I need you to admit that you were wrong and apologize to me. Then we can decide where to go next. Do you agree?" That's how it began. My dad took Gary and Angie out of school so the kids wouldn't be home while Kate drank her dinner. I thought it was a stupid idea, but once Kate got something into her head, there was no stopping her. The first bottle went quite quickly, and although she felt the effects, it was nowhere near where she should have been. A bottle and a half in, she was already cheerful and starting to get a little sentimental, saying that she was sorry for being such a bitch. We're not there yet. 2 bottles, and she was drunk, but still a little sane. We were close, so we opened a 3rd bottle. I was sipping a Corona and munching on a slice of pizza. One of us had to stay sober for this to work. 2¼ bottles, Kate held on with all her strength. She fought to stay with us, but almost completely lost her taste for wine. She was on the edge. Everything we did from that moment on, she will never remember. "Just finish the rest of the bottle. Then we'll see where we are." She looked a little green, and I prayed she wouldn't throw up. "To the bottom," she said, drinking the rest of the wine. Surprisingly, she was still conscious and slightly sane after 3 bottles. Now we only had beer left. I went to the refrigerator to get one. By the time I returned, her head was lying on the kitchen table. It was a stupid idea. She could have poisoned herself with alcohol, and for what? Just to prove a point. Something I knew for sure, but she didn't want to accept. I carried her upstairs to our bedroom. She muttered something, but I didn't understand what exactly. I pulled back the blanket and laid her on the bed. She was almost unconscious and close to fainting, probably both. I took her clothes off, made sure I won the argument the only way she would understand. I made love to her. Finally, I wrote a long letter on her stomach with a black marker, explaining what I had done. I kissed her, told her I loved her, and left. I knew she wouldn't remember anything, but I left anyway. Without the trust we once had, we are left with only an empty shell of what was once something very good. I only took as much money as I needed to survive for a while and gave the rest to my father to give back to Kate. I could be stubborn, but I wasn't a complete ass. I still didn't know where I would end up. I just needed to get out of there and start my life again. You've never experienced real winter until you worked on an oil pipeline in Fargo, North Dakota in January. It's cold as hell, the wind is always blowing, and there's nothing to do there unless ice fishing or snowmobiling interests you. Sometimes it doesn't matter what you know, but who you know. My office skills are the same as a million other guys, which meant simply finding another job would be impossible. My father's longtime friend is involved in the oil industry. After I left Kate, I called Greg. I needed his help and his silence. Without experience, I couldn't get a job on the Alaskan oil pipeline, and working on an oil rig in the Atlantic seemed brutal and inhumane. So Fargo was my next choice. The money was not bad, not what I had earned before, but I was answerable only to the field manager. I rented a small room with a tiny kitchen and an even smaller bathroom. I ate mostly in cafes and sent about 30% of my earnings to my father for my children, not Kate. I sent them cards and letters, wishing I had brought my laptop from home so I could send emails as well. Maybe I'll ask my father to pick it up from home and send it to me. My parents kept me updated and sent me photos they took of my two children when they visited them at home. Cards were exchanged, hugs were shared. Even though my parents knew where I was, I made them promise that Kate would not get this information. I thought I was probably already divorced for abandonment, but neither my mother nor father ever mentioned it, or gave me any documents, or talked about her, only about Gary and Angie. Even though life was hard, I felt good for the first time in a long time. I was doing things I thought I could never physically do, and I was probably in the best shape of my entire life, well, at least since I was 20. I didn't even bother cutting my scalp or facial hair. Within a year, my hair had completely grown back, and I had a great beard. I had a hidden purpose for the beard, hoping that the extra facial hair would help warm it up. I had been working for 12 months straight when I decided I needed a break. "I'll be home soon for a short visit. Please don't tell anyone," were the only instructions I left with my mom and dad. I arrived just before midnight on Thursday and had a little reunion with my parents until 3 in the morning, when I couldn't keep my eyes open a second longer. After more than 16 hours on the road, sleep was what I needed most. My mother came into my room at noon to tell me that dinner was on the table. I needed to shower and get dressed and go downstairs. I never argued with my mother. With my hair in a ponytail and dressed in shorts and a t-shirt, I looked nothing like the businessman I used to be. I looked in the mirror and thought I should be riding a Harley instead of driving the four-door Kia I left 13 months ago. With over a year of working on the oil pipeline, I thought that when I decided to return, I could sign with a more experienced crew and make a lot more money. 30 seconds after my feet hit the kitchen floor, I had 2 children hanging from my waist. Hugs and kisses were given. Tears were shed and apologies were finally made. If they were still angry at me, they didn't show it. Dinner was on the table and stories and experiences were exchanged. I never brought up the subject of their mother, and neither did they. Although I wanted to know her business, I was afraid to ask. I've been with a few women over the last year. They were just there to satisfy a need, and that was it. Maybe I'll stop by and say hello before I leave again. "Dad, you're nothing like you were when you left," Gary said, stuffing his mouth. "I like the way he looks," Angie added her opinion. "He looks like one of those lumberjacks you see on TV." Children, where I was, it was not a show on TV at all, I promise you that. By the way, how is your mother doing? So I said it, and judging by the expression on the faces of everyone present, perhaps I shouldn't have. "She's fine. She's still working in the same place as before." This didn't tell me anything. "Dad, did you tell her that I came for a visit?" "Son, the kids are here, aren't they?" How could she not know? Okay, that was a stupid question, and since no one told me what I wanted to know, I let it go. I spent a wonderful day with the children. They held on to me like a lifeline, almost afraid that if they don't, I'll disappear again. When Dad said he had to take them home, they weren't happy. "Why don't you come home with us? You can see Mom and have dinner with us." Guys, if I know one thing for sure, it's that I'm the last person your mother wants to see. Don't worry, I won't be gone for a while. Besides, I still need to get the rest of my tools from the garage at home before I leave. I couldn't read the expressions on their faces, but 13 long months had passed, and I had to relearn how to talk to children. After Dad left with the children, I turned to Mom. Mom, no nonsense. How are they doing? It was a little tense for a while, and there was a lot of anger at everyone. Your dad was on everyone's blacklist for months. They finally realized it wasn't entirely your fault. Kate took it hard, though. Fine. Stephen Moore, what a disgusting thing to say. My mother reproached me, calling me to account. Mom, it didn't have to be like this. She just didn't give me a damn break. She killed our marriage, not me. My mother looked at me with her strict Christian gaze. It's not that I wish her harm, but she ruined our marriage, not me. My mom wasn't going to let it go. The good book says Jesus forgave those who nailed him to the cross. She pointed her finger at me. Can't you forgive a stupid woman who overdid it and made several errors in judgment? Mom, I've been asking myself that question every night for the past year, and I never found a good answer. At least she knew before I left that it could happen without even remembering it. I let it go, and so did she. On Saturday, I walked around the city, meeting up with a few friends. Nobody recognized me. I enjoyed it. I saw Kevin and Amy on Saturday night at a local bar. I told the bartender to get them each a drink and picked up the beers when they were delivered. They probably stared at me for half an hour before Kevin finally came over to thank me. Do I know you? He asked uncertainty. Do you still have fun when you pass out? Damn it, Steve. We laughed and hugged. He yelled for Amy to come over. With them, it was as if I had never left. Have you seen Kate? Amy asked, and then thought about her question. No, there's no reason. But Steve, didn't the kids tell you? Kevin stopped her immediately. Amy, it's none of our business. What are you doing? What's with your hair and beard? The look he gave Amy after that told me that something was going on my mother, and now Amy something that no one had told me. I slept like a baby on Saturday night until I was dragged out of bed at 9 on Sunday morning to go to church. I don't hate the church. I just didn't see the point in it anymore. God never answered my prayers when I begged for help before I left. Since he turned away from me, I did the same to him. Nothing changed. Mom wanted to show me to everyone, knowing that I left under not the best circumstances, but I came back and looked better than ever. Mom was always proud of me. Sundays were usually reserved for family dinners. These were lunches, and everyone brought something. Since this was my first dinner in over a year, it was nice to be back home, even for a short time. How long am I at home? Where do I plan to go next? And what about my hair and beard? Everyone wanted to know all the personal details, including whether I was dating someone. I don't have a lot of free time, and all the hot women don't flock to Fargo, North Dakota, especially in the winter, to look for a husband, I tried to explain to the group. Mom was putting out food when she dropped the bomb on me. I think she deliberately waited until everyone started getting ready so that I couldn't leave. I invited Gary, Angie, and Kate for lunch today. She waited for the explosion. No problem. I can't hide from her forever, especially since we have a couple kids together. Mom gave me a double glance upon hearing this statement. Besides, I still need to get the rest of my tools from the garage before I leave. Who was I kidding? It's been over 13 months, and I've been dying to see her. I thought about her more times than not, lying alone in my cold bed, trying to replay in my mind how we missed it. And then it was night when I left. I really think Kate expected to see me there when she finally woke up, only by then all I wanted to do was prove a point. I think I achieved this goal pretty well before I left, so I waited. I noticed Gary first as he headed out onto the terrace, followed by Angie. I hugged them both, lifting Angie above my head, spinning her around. She laughed, or rather screamed, until I let her go. Mom is here, Angie began. Dad, she doesn't recognize you. Dad, please don't be angry, and don't quarrel in front of everyone. Please? Her please was as much a question as it was a statement. Don't worry, I won't embarrass you or even myself. I'll be nice and put on a happy face, okay? Gary smiled at me. Angie was unsure. Why was everyone afraid that I would make a fool of myself? I walked away from the group of people I was talking to find Kate. Found her talking to my mother near the kitchen. She looked the same as I remembered, maybe a little thinner, and her hair was a little shorter, but it suited her. As always, the mother was holding someone's child in her arms. It seemed that at these meetings she always had someone's child in her arms. So I took a deep breath and put one foot in front of the other. "It's been a long time, Kate," I said, her back as my mom watched me approach. She turned, looked, and took a second look. "If it weren't for your voice, I would never have recognized you. You look good different, but good." There was no hug, no handshake, not even a kiss on the cheek. Okay, I don't know what I expected, but it looks like I got the same Kate I left months ago, the insensitive woman who basically cut me off months before I left. Or maybe she was just playing hard to get. I laughed to myself at the thought and quietly said, "Bitch." I tried to say something to diffuse the situation. "I like what you did with the hair, it looks good." Damn, I was like a stupid teenager trying to find the words without making a complete fool of myself. I almost lost control and crashed. Crap, I probably would have started talking about the weather if my mom hadn't intervened. "Take this," she told Kate. "Take David, I need to check on the food in the oven. Look, you two need to talk, and you can't do it with us and everyone else listening. Why don't you take a walk to the park? We won't eat for at least 45 minutes. I'll look after the children." It looks like we had no choice. Mom arranged it. I expected Kate to return the baby to my mother, but she simply repositioned him in her arms and walked towards the front door without even looking at me. Apparently, she took responsibility, as always. I almost stopped and turned around, only I promised the children that I would behave well, even if it killed me. The park was across the street and down half a block. We walked in complete silence. Perhaps she was waiting to get there before starting, only this time I was prepared. When we reached the group from 4 picnic tables, she stopped and turned to face me. Her face was not angry, I didn't know what it was. Well, I answered. "What do you mean, so what? You left in the middle of the night almost 14 months ago without saying a word, and now you have nothing to say. How about sorry? Do you have any idea what your leaving did to the children? They cried for days. I know you were angry at me, but taking it out on them was unforgivable." She gave me teeth and nails. "I'm glad you lied about money. You were right, I would have lost the house. Steve, aren't you sorry?" I knew I would have to answer this question, and I rehearsed my answer 1,000 times. "What about you? Are you sorry for making my life hell? Are you sorry for killing what was once a wonderful marriage? You still have the same damn attitude, and to answer you honestly, no, I'm not sorry that I left." Okay, for a minute, I thought you were going to back out. Now, this surprised me. I think I went a little overboard. A little. Jesus Christ, Kate, you were a real vixen. Okay, maybe I was, but you weren't white and fluffy either. Listen, I don't want to bring up the past. It's past and over. We can't replay this. Somehow everything went wrong, and you let me know that you're done with me. Steve, don't put words in my mouth. I didn't say that. All I said was that I don't believe you about what happened that night. Damn, is that all you can say, Kate? I have to give you credit, though. I never in my life thought you'd be able to drink those 3 bottles. I thought I'd have to run to the store when you finally passed out. I was on a high. Now the $10,000 question, do you remember anything? She was still silent, but she couldn't take her eyes off mine when she finally answered in a quiet voice. Okay, you were right. I never would have believed it, but you proved your point. God, how you proved it. Should I have written my dear Kate letter on my stomach with an indelible black marker? First of all, your children saw it before me the next morning, because when they came home, I was still sleeping. Secondly, I couldn't read what you wrote even in the mirror, so I had to use a double mirror. I smiled. I never thought about it, and imagining Kate running around trying to read what I wrote got me a little fun. Don't look so smug, because I have the best for you. You were right. I didn't remember anything after the second bottle. It didn't take me long to realize what happened the next morning, but by then you were long gone. Pop, it was clear to me that you had a good time. Now she was smiling. Did I react in any way that night? Believe it or not, you enjoyed yourself. Now I was smiling, or would have been, if not for her last salvo. Well, if I had known what you were planning, I would have talked to you then. You see, Steve, since we weren't doing anything, I stopped taking the pills for about a month to give my body a rest. Here you go, she said, she handing me the child. Meet your son, David. I looked at her and then at the child. No, no, you're not going to try and give me another guy's baby like mine. I'm not that stupid. Thought you'd say that, so I did a DNA test on him, Gary and Angie. And guess what? They all have the same mother and father, can you believe it? This was not the conversation I had planned with Kate. Now you have the same options you gave me. We can go back and live as a couple again and go to counseling, or we can separate for real and get a divorce. And let's be clear, I don't want that option, regardless. What do you think? If you remember, you never chose any of my options. You just left me hanging. Okay, I admit it, I was wrong. I was a real bore, but you hurt me. You humiliated me in front of all our friends, and then continued to deny everything even after I saw it with my own eyes. You know what this bachelor party became because of 3 divorces, directly or indirectly. And that's not counting our breakup. I'm giving you the same options and the same 3 days that you gave me. I hope you make better choices than I did. Well, with that said, we need to get back before they send out a search party. We walked back with David in our arms. Who else knows about this? That's it. Think about it, Steve. You leave and leave me pregnant. All our friends thought you were an insensitive scoundrel until I explained to them how it happened, or how I thought it happened. Then, when you didn't come back, all our parents and friends helped. I was sure that they wouldn't tell you, because your father knew that you would return. I didn't want you to return under these conditions. Still, your father knew that you would return, he just didn't know when. That's why no one mentioned you when I asked. What were they supposed to say? Oh, by the way, you left Kate pregnant the night you left, and you have another son. Why did you call him David? Well, David killed the giant. I thought I'd need David to kill our giant problems when you finally decided to come back. You're back, aren't you? I didn't have an answer to this. My mom watched us walk in, and I think she breathed a sigh of relief that at least we didn't kill each other. She came and took David from me and told me that I would have plenty of time later to meet my son. Go eat something before it's all gone. We watched each other for the rest of the day, never finding a chance to talk alone again. Dad, are you mad at Mom? Angie asked, sitting down next to me. Gary and I wanted to tell you, but they wouldn't let us. You'll like David. He's a good kid. He hardly ever cries. She desperately tried to explain. I'm not mad at David. How can you be mad at a child? Kate was a different matter now. At 4 o'clock, lunch ended. Everyone said goodbye, not knowing if they would see me again. Kate said that there are a million things to do at home, and she also has to leave. The kiss and hug I received from Kate were the first she had given me voluntarily in almost 17 months. So much time has passed since we loved each other and were together. Remember, you have 3 days. It sounded just as harsh and unfeeling when I said those words to her then, I wonder. I walked them all to the car and received another kiss for my troubles. My children's eyes were like saucers, probably hoping that they would see me again tomorrow. So how did it go? Asked my mother, interrupting your occupation at a time. It was a shock. Does anyone want to say anything else? No, I think that's it, my father said with a goofy grin on his face. What if I hadn't decided to come home? Would anyone have told me? My father stopped folding the folding chairs and looked at me. We probably would have had to eventually. We were hoping you'd come to your senses sooner or later and come back on your own. We just didn't think it would take so long. He turned away from me and went back to folding chairs. I could tell he wasn't happy about my long absence. Listen, dear, my mother added, you've both made big mistakes, But Kate loves you, and I think deep down you still love her. You two have brought another life into your problems, and this one child doesn't deserve to be deprived. You are a good person. I know you'll make the right decision, I just know it. Nothing tries to get you to make the right decision like a mother, but for me it wasn't that easy. I called Kate and asked her to give me a week instead. 3 days to make a decision. I could tell by her voice that she did not want to agree, but reluctantly agreed. I think she knew that I seriously considered what she told me. I spent most of the next week considering my options. What I found wasn't good. My old job was long gone, and although my former boss gave me a great letter of recommendation, good jobs were rare in this economy. I had walked away from my old life, and now I, along with the rest of my family, was paying the price. No one was hiring, at least for what I was looking for, and without work we couldn't survive. I sent home 30% of what I earned and saved 20, but even with that nest egg, it wouldn't last long. I felt bloated again, and the second time it wasn't any more fun. Kate and I talked. I spent every available minute with Gary, Angie, and David, but after a week, I still didn't know what I was going to do. Added to this was the pressure of realizing that I was running out of time. On the day of the decision, I invited Kate to dinner. I considered all my options and even talked to my parents to get their opinion. Life can be deceiving sometimes, and I've had too many of those days lately. Dinner was pleasant. I even invited her for a slow dance in a bar. We were avoiding the issue we had come here to talk about, and I could see in her eyes that she was not happy. Enough already. Are you going to stay, or are you going to go? What the hell are you going to do? Talk to me for God's sake. She was almost screaming at this point. As I said earlier, winters in Fargo are harsh. This winter was no exception. The new foreman was preparing me for the position of foreman, which would open in about a year. This raise would pay me 20% more than I was making now, and with the decent salary increase I got when I came back, I was making more than I had in a long time. Life is not a fairy tale, and sometimes it doesn't go the way you want it to. Sometimes you have to do something you don't want to do, but you know it's right. It was late, I was cold, my back hurt, and I was in a bad mood after the 18 o'clock shift. I stopped for something to eat and headed to my room. The water never warmed up enough to warm my bones, but such is life on an oil pipeline in mid-February. I crawled into bed and listened to my joints crack as I straightened my legs and stretched my back. Even through her flannel pajamas, I could feel her warmth, and it was wonderful. Our life was not easy. After talking and arguing more than a little, we decided to give it a try once more. For me, the decision to give it another chance was primarily for the sake of the children, especially David, whom I barely knew. We both knew it wouldn't be so easy this time. We screwed this up a long time ago. I returned to the house and life was great for a week and a half. Then I had to go back. I had no choice. Money rules, and without it we couldn't survive, at least not like we used to. With my salary increase, I earned more than in my last office job, but the conditions were not as pleasant. Kate and I alternated trips every month. 1 month the children went to see their grandparents, and she came to me on long weekends alone, admitting that the cold winters in Fargo were her penance for her unrelenting, tormenting behavior. The next month I flew down to visit her and the kids for about 4 days at a time. When she arrived, we almost never left the bed, catching up by any means possible. I was partially reimbursed for travel expenses, but that was the only way it would work because Kate said she would not be moving to North Dakota. Our plans now include long-term goals, one of which is to find a job for me within driving distance of our home. Have we been able to return to what we were a couple of years ago? Yes and no. We still love each other, but now we beat ourselves up for letting it get out of hand. And now we're paying the price. Our kids love that we're back together, but hate that I'm mostly away. It will get better someday, I keep telling them. One of the guys in the brigade is getting married in a month. His friends are throwing him a bachelor party on Saturday night. When they approached me for a donation and asked if I was going to come, I just smiled, gave them 20 and said no. Been there, done that, and now I'm freezing over it. Damn it, I hate Fargo. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.